Good evening. This is calling to what is it? Calling to order. Thank you. The fifth and final meeting of the Capital Expenses Planning Committee. We're here. I think we're going to begin the conversation with the ratings that were submitted. Looks like we got all ratings from all 7 folks. Was there anything you wanted to begin the conversation with? Looking at you.
Sure. So I did pass out some sheets, but that's for after we talk about the ratings. None of them have the ratings on them. So we did email out the spreadsheet yesterday. I think that, I'm just trying to pull it up, but I think there were 4 projects that were rated between 14 and 16, whereas most of them were in the 20s. So I didn't know if you wanted to start by having a discussion about those projects in particular. And just as a reminder, that additional step we did this year, which happened before the projects came to you, was making sure that all of the projects fit within the fiscal management policies. So if you were to recommend all of the projects, that would still be within the fiscal management policies. So I don't know if we want to start with.
Sure, and just to put a pin in some of those numbers, the recommendation is between 1 and 1.5% of our expenses, which is about somewhere between 1.4 and 2.1 million dollars. The column E of the spreadsheet, the free cash line, is at 1.5 million, and there's a couple of other pieces, the sewer expenses, water expenses. I think when you start rolling in the other enterprise expenses, it goes over that 2 million, but the 1.4 to 2.1 million is really for free cash.
Correct.
Which is where we are in the sweet spot for right now. The 4 by order of the lowest, and I'll just sort of throw them all out there, and we can decide if we want to dig into any one of them in particular. And this is going to be some back and forth. It is the fire department AV room is a 15. The command vehicle? Yeah, the mobile command vehicle is a 14. There's a Gibbons Middle School Fieldhouse renovations, a 15, and the last one was it's the last on the list. The aerator for the golf club is a 16. So with all those 4 on the table, I suppose let's start with a question. Does anybody want to consider any numbers that are above that before we go into those 4? Because those 4 seem like the best to focus in on for sure.
That's okay to start with the lowest ones.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Unless anybody wanted to discuss something else that should really be in play. And if it should be in play, the numbers don't stand by that, but that's a pretty quick conversation. So within those 4, I'll entertain any feedback for any of those in terms of what we would want or not want, or any reason why we would want to keep one of those.
Well, the aerator is being funded from golf retained earnings and was deemed necessary by the staff. So it seems like we should just keep that in because they know they want an aerator.
And I would complement that by saying they've run a very successful organization, constantly adding to their capital plan. They have a strategy, they're sticking to it, they're financially healthy, and there's no reason to think that if they're making decisions like this, it isn't in the best interest of their efforts, the club, the efforts, whatever else they're doing. So I would agree with that. Did anybody else have any other thoughts about the bottom 4?
I had the same thoughts on the aerator.
Yep.
The other one, the Gibbons Fieldhouse, it seems like a lot for 125, but it is just a monstrosity in that parking lot that does not need to be there. And there's always a parking issue and it's going to come down. I just think it is what it is. It needs to get taken down and it's not super expensive. So might as well just get it done now.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, my perception of both of that combined campus is that every time I've walked there, just like, what is that building doing there?
Yeah.
Obviously not being used. Let's use the space for something else and let's not look like a town that has an old building sitting in the parking lot. Right?
Yep. And then the AV for the fire department meeting room, I had originally scored this lower, but then after Chief Purcell's explanation of how they use it, and I don't see a lot of groups using it, right? A lot of boards, committees, and I know some do, but most use this or the Forbes building. But then he was saying there's a lot of like training and fire classes and stuff like that that is also used. So I think for $75,000, that's probably going to get used well, and will be a reasonable expense that's needed. I haven't been over there in a while to see how bad the quality is, but if it's anything like this or Forbes, then I'm sure it probably needs an upgrade.
And I'd complement that by saying there's a nexus to safety involved in that, and that's actually going to come up in the police vehicle as well. But the nexus to safety and the fact that so many other groups that are important to the safety and well-being of this community, it's an important consideration as well. So strong bolstering of that.
That's all I have.
Fantastic. Tom, did you have anything you wanted to add? And I'm sorry if you missed it. We're just
Sorry
talking
for
about the
coming
four
in
with the
late.
lowest.
Yeah, the aerator with the golf,
Yep.
despite the rating, in light of the price tag and the golf's funding there, sounds like I concur with the group on recommending that one. And then Gibbons, yeah, the field house. So I'm in.
Jack, did you have anything you wanted to add? To the building, the school building, I would be really reluctant to fall back on aesthetics as a concern, because this is a pragmatic get together. But that being said, parking is an issue. Parking is a constant issue in that area, and gaining a couple more spaces with an eye towards how we can use that space better for other things, I think is compelling. Not to detract from the aesthetics, but only to say that as a committee, I think that shouldn't be our leading point, although it is certainly a fair consideration as well.
So
I mean,
just want-
the building could get moldy. It could have rats.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many, many reasons an old building.
Agreed.
I'm sorry.
Agreed.
it's not, yeah, I wasn't going to say it's the aesthetics of the building that are the issue. It's the
I said that, but-
falling apart.
No, and I heard ugly building.
Yeah, but it could,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the potential for mold, the potential for
Yep.
vandalism, the potential for, someone to find a way in, students to make mischief. Like, not that our students make mischief.
No.
No, never. But
And what was
No,
what was the alternative if we just demolished the building? Was there a temporary?
No.
It's
fix?
stay or go are the
Stay or
options
go.
on this. Yeah. So
No, there's a-
small.
no, I guess there was a shed
That was my loose
Not there,
recollection.
elsewhere.
Also, yeah, because there was some.
Yeah.
For overflow
For
potential,
snow blowers, I think.
Yeah.
yeah, I think the funds include the shed. The funds are for the demolition and then a shed, wherever the shed's going to go. That's what I understood.
Right, that's.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it
That's
solves
good to know.
it solves the storage problem as well
and
as
parking spaces, which
demolition.
I thought was
Does it
helpful
solve
as well.
Does it include the repaving? Did we figure that out?
That's what my understanding was. It was
Yeah,
to,
okay.
to demolish and
Yeah.
pave.
So I think that's a good price tag for
Is
three
that correct?
actions.
I'm
Yeah.
just looking it up now.
I may have goofed entirely. I thought it was fixing it. It's knocked down, pave it,
It's
and
knocked
then
down.
a separate.
Yep. Repave.
Yeah, that's a good refresher.
Yeah, it says the building will be raised along with utilities and approximately 20 parking spaces will be added.
That's great.
That's phenomenal.
That's
20 spaces. Those are very small spaces. What are they, bicycle spaces?
It's
No.
a big building.
It's surprisingly
That's
big.
good size.
And
Yeah.
there's probably a turning lane
There is.
around the building,
Yeah.
so the parking lot could be reconfigured.
Oh, I
in the
guess that's
area.
gonna be the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
To the questions about the police command vehicle, which is also one of the ones is this. Again, a nexus to the safety of the community. The police have put a stake out there. There is an opportunity. I think some of the conversation about how the fire would use this as well was sort of, I don't want to say it was challenged. It was complemented by the fact that they have their own command vehicles and that this wouldn't necessarily be a go-to. But as the town grows, as the town has events that a lot of people go to, our police have decided this is an important factor for the safety of crowds and organizing things. And I think that has to carry some weight in terms of the discussion. I'm in favor of it. I'd understand those who have a counterpoint, but I just want to make sure I put that out there as a sort of a concern that I had.
I just wanted to give some additional information. Chief Minardi let me know that one of the grants that he had intended on applying for, he did not receive. So he is going to apply for, he said he'd still be pursuing a regional homeland security grant. However, there's some concerns about the potential funding freeze there. So I think as you consider this project right now, the intention is that 100,000 would be funded through free cash, and Chief Minardi had intended to fund the balance through grants. However, he has reached out stating that he would want to consider the full amount. He'll continue to pursue other grants, but I think that as you consider it, you should consider the full amount as being part of the plan. There is enough funding to cover the whole thing and stay within the policies. It just was not how it was originally presented to you because we didn't know that we didn't receive that grant.
So the full 474, if considered as part of free cash, would bump the free cash up to 19,01600. Más o menos.
Wouldn't it be 474 plus the 100,000 that's currently requested from free cash? So a total of 574?
No.
474 was the total?
So
I see.
we're carrying 374 as an offset to that total number.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even then, at the approximately 1.9 million, that still puts us within our target.
Yeah. So if you look also with, I don't remember how it looks on here, but in this giant spreadsheet that you have in front of you, if you look at the third page, that first column has that 630,594 at the bottom. That's how much is available to stay within what we estimate that 1 to 1.5% would be of fiscal 27.
So the 635.94.
Yes. So that's what's available to continue to stay within the policies.
So this low command vehicle will consume 100,000 of that.
It's already slated to consume 100,000. It would be an additional 374,000.
The whole thing.
That's what the chief is discussing right now. Just because he's unsure of the grants. He found out he didn't get a grant. He's also talking to the police foundation, but I don't know what, their interest or available funds are in funding it. So
Maybe let's come back to that one. Or do you want to?
Well, at some point, we're going to then vote on the plan. We can certainly, if there's more conversation beyond those bottom, we're happy to entertain that.
So, just want to make sure I'm clear on this. We're going to vote to move these things forward. So
As a recommendation
as
for
a
the town.
recommendation
Yep,
So that they could go on the warrant.
correct. And they would go on the warrant regardless, but like if there's a conversation, if we pull things out, that they might not be on the warrant, but this will be on the warrant with a recommendation from
I
this
thought we were
board.
recommending to the town manager what to include in the capital budget.
that's right.
Right, which ends up on the warrant, yes?
But we don't have any direct impact on what's on the warrant or not. Christie makes
Fair
the
enough.
decision.
Fair enough. Thank you.
So is the only thing we have left to discuss the mobile command vehicle?
I think so, if that's still on that's on block, unless other folks have anything else they want to raise.
No.
So, mobile command vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with this one because it does seem like it would be beneficial. The police are saying it would be beneficial. Fire and the schools submitted information saying it would be beneficial. It is the highest cost out of all the capital projects towards free cash, especially with the 474 being the total amount. So that's a concern. I mean, that's $500,000 right there. But if it's needed, then I think this is what we should be using as a funding source to get these kind of things. The whole list of stuff that were here seemed like it was everything that staff has said we need or we really need. So if they're saying we need it and we have the cash, I would be in favor of supporting it.
It is appropriate to fund something like this. It's not an operational cost. CapEx cost, so it's appropriate to fund it in this way, but it is a large figure and does consume a significant portion of free cash and just closer to the line. I'm supportive of it the same reasons you are, John. They've asked for these things. I think it's important that we have them. I'm hopeful that as I asked the chief when presented, was kind of hoping there was an opportunity that could be pursued. Sorry, I was kind of hoping that there was an opportunity with an IMA with other municipalities to you know, to me, I see this as a kind of a regional vehicle that could be used and called upon. I don't know how often it would be called upon in Westborough. So I was thinking it could be more used as a regional type response vehicle. But doesn't sound like that timing is working out right now. So I think it's something that we continue to pursue and bring it to town meeting through, as your point was, the town manager.
And I think to your point that this is about a 10-year horizon on this vehicle. I mean, it's a fair thing to ask the police to be mindful of how often this is something we use versus how often it's shared, because when they come back for this in 8 to 10 years, that would be a fair point of.
Yeah, I guess my point on the sharing isn't necessarily that other municipalities would directly access the vehicle, but more along the lines that it would be used in perhaps a response, and therefore there would be an opportunity for other municipalities to call it buy-in, for lack of a better word, into its access, right? But again, I think the timing isn't there to make that happen. So, and it does sound like we need something like this for all the reasons that were listed by both the police chief, the schools, even the fire chief even made some comments per my question to him, and that's good, right? So,
Yeah, I think it's kind of high on the maybe innovation aspect of its kind of criteria, because the force hasn't had this vehicle or something like it previously to coordinate a response. So I think it presents an opportunity for the force to see how they're going to use this vehicle. And in the next 10 years, what I wanted to know, we were discussing some of the scenarios. The chief was presenting some of the scenarios in which it might be used. I'd like to see that list of scenarios that it might be used increase, right? It seems like a vehicle that multiple individuals can be inside at the same time and actually have conversations and look at data together, which is fantastic. And, if there isn't an interregional sharing opportunity because it hasn't been coordinated, perhaps the town itself can find more ways for this data center with people inside collaborating to be used at like a variety of different events. And furthermore, we don't know what's going to happen in the political future and the, public gathering future. And so certainly whenever there's a public gathering of like more than however many people, like I think it would be definitely helpful to have this vehicle available in response to that. And we're a very civic community.
Yeah,
right?
I would certainly expect it to be dispatched at for activities like that. And to your point, you made me think about the visuals that he presented in regards to kind of their current situation and what this really would look like. And I think it makes a lot of sense, putting up temporary pop-up tents and taking very expensive equipment out of a truck in a bad weather or, all hours of day and night, not a desirable situation when you're already under the pressure of dealing with an emergency. So, I am supportive of it. And we'll see how it goes from there.
So I did have an community question, and that is that my understanding was that those sorts of arrangements were generally supported on a pay upfront model where a fixed cost was split and then multiple people had use. Are there circumstances where other communities would be billed for access to services?
Certainly you could structure an IMA with sort of a fee for service, and then we would have to set up a way that those funds could be used essentially to maintain the vehicle. It's not like we would be carrying any sort of debt on it, so it wouldn't pay down that initial cost. Technically, the fees would come in and go to free cash if you didn't set up a fund, and so you could say that it was, ultimately being replenished. But I think what you're alluding to is that the communities would go in together, which also happens, purchase the asset, and then it would sit with a community to be dispatched from.
An example of that is the DPW bought correct me if I'm wrong here, is a camera for the sewer system to kind of go in and inspect sewer lines. We shared that with Southborough, I believe. Yeah. So that's one example of doing that. We have IMAs on some other different things as well.
I'm sorry, we share do they pay per use or did they pay for the investment?
I believe it was the upfront investment.
Upfront, and then we have an agreement about it being used. That one is a great example. It's the only difference there is that it's, they can schedule that use as opposed to an emergency. Yeah.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that if the idea of a fee for use model is not like unheard of, if it's not inappropriate, because obviously our fire departments have response opportunities as other communities do with us. But if that is a possibility, then we could implement that in 2 years, 3 years, as we got a sense of the use of this. So the idea that this cost could be offset at some point in the future shouldn't be taken off the table as we see how this vehicle is used and the opportunity presents
I
itself.
would agree. I think you're taking a note here, so that's a
I
good.
think that's a good suggestion, because you could get to a point where, because obviously with public safety, there's a lot of mutual aid
Yep.
that happens, but if you find that departments are using it regularly, it could be just a flat assessment or something like that also, so.
And to the point of emergencies being hard to schedule, obviously, but events are not as much so. So if Grafton, if Shrewsbury knew that they were having a significant event, and it would be to the benefit of their town to have a vehicle like this, and it worked on our schedule, that seems to me sort of a way that we could, that there could be, an opportunity to cooperate.
I mean, I think the question is whether the chief wants to use this as an emergency vehicle. Not that I know what everyone in the police department knows about police operations, but is this an emergency vehicle or an event vehicle? Because the scenario he played was a person was lost. So if the vehicle is sitting in a neighboring town and a Westborough resident is suddenly lost, then we don't have the opportunity to use this vehicle to find the lost Westborough resident. So I think maybe the chief and his staff should figure out more, or what they want to do with it. And I don't know if we need to be presented with more about what they want to do with it,
I think it's
or have they answered that question?
So it's, if my understanding is correct, it's really like a communications vehicle.
Yeah.
And they said they can control the drone there, which is for video surveillance.
Yeah.
They can do radios. They're monitoring all the different channels and all that kind of stuff. So my guess would be, for example, we get the vehicle. It's the marathon. Hopkinton asks for help with the command center. It's used as almost like an office for the event for security, right? But then in a hazard or disaster situation, it's the same, right? Because that's the event. And so they can use it as a station, a centralized station. I don't think it's like a search vehicle. It would just be if there is a all-out search of town for somebody, it can be used as the central point for communication.
Right.
So I think, in that unlikely situation that there's two events that happen at the same time and we don't have it, we'll probably make do with the way that we've been doing it. But I'm sure there's also some prioritization hierarchy of like, if this is just an event and they're doing safety precaution, but we need something for a hazard or a disaster over here, it's going to come over here.
Yeah, there's going to be, I think the comment I'm hearing, and I think Chrissy's possibly hearing it as well, is that there's an opportunity here to be looked at, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right, there's a cost avoidance to risk kind of factor you've got to understand as to whether or not, if another town was interested in signing up for something, what is that something and what does it create as a risk for our community?
As a risk, right.
So you just need to understand it. And that's the whole point is there a cost avoidance opportunity? Yes, there is, but how much risk do we want to assume through that? So I don't think we're a body that dictates that.
No, we don't figure
So
that out.
I don't want to bog this down. My point was I was just talking about the fact that this is something I'm hopeful, not only this, but as we look at other capital expenditures or any projects in the future, we should always be looking at cost avoidance opportunities as well. So that's,
Yeah. I mean, it's a high cost item. For example, last year we passed over the Hastings playground upgrade, which was roughly this exact price. So when you think about the number of people in town that are being served by an item of this cost magnitude, I think it's an important decision.
So, John, this is probably a question for you. If free cash isn't used, does it get automatically put back into the general fund? Or does it stay in the free cash fund?
Excuse me, free cash is a general fund asset.
Okay.
On our balance
So if we don't use all the money that's certified free cash, the balance will just get transferred over to the general fund to be used for anything?
It stays in free cash.
It stays in free cash?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
To be
and
used next
technically-
year.
Correct.
It has
It's
to be
just-
recertified,
Got it.
but yeah.
And technically, we're not using all the free cash. So we currently have a goal of between 10 and 15% of free cash split between what the the savings accounts are.
Stabilization and free cash.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so if we didn't use all of the money here, if we saved the money here, that would mean we'd probably inch up higher, because right now we're around 12.5%, más o menos. We'd get closer to 13.5%. If we use more of it, we'd be closer to the 12.5%. So there is no circumstance where we're running our free cash down.
Yep.
This is just keeping us within our range, which is how we arrived at the
Yeah,
one
no,
and a
I
half.
guess my point, sorry, Chris, my point was just going to be if we were to go back to the general fund and that was going
Yep.
to save people for taxes, right? Because that's the argument. Let's save people money. How much would that actually equate to? But I don't think that matters because maybe we did that one time, or am I confusing? Maybe we took a payment from free cash and paid off tax.
So for the last few years, we've used $450,000 of free cash to lower the tax rate.
Right, that is what I'm thinking of.
But we're trying to not use any because it's a one-time expense.
Yeah.
Where I thought you were headed, so I just wanted to make a comment, is that that 1 to 1.5% is annual. So so maybe I don't need to say this, but if there's sort of leftover free cash in fiscal 27, which if you move this forward, there potentially could be, it doesn't mean that the numbers become more available or the numbers are larger for availability of funds in fiscal 28. Does that make sense? I don't know if I said that.
Yeah. So, sorry, just to continue this thought process. If we are not doing the 450 towards tax buy down, how much on average did that 450 lower taxes for a household in Westborough?
About
So
$50.
$50.
50? 50? So I guess the question is, would you pay $50 to have this command vehicle
Oh.
in Westborough?
But to Andrew's point, we have millions more dollars in free cash.
But if it was a 450 payment that we're not making, and this is 474, it's about the same. So 50 and change per household to have this mobile command vehicle.
But that 450 is coming out of an expense for the covering the cost of the town. This is a 450 investment in capital. So if we didn't spend this, our free cash would grow. I don't know that that would change our budgeting plans next year so that we would not spend the 470-ish.
That's not the point I was making. If we were to get rid of the 450 from free cash
Yep.
overall, right? Because in the past we took 450 from free cash and used it to pay down the tax rate. In the past,
We paid it down by paying expenses. We went to recurring expenses.
I understand that.
So the expenses are still there.
I understand that. What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
if we were to just do a 1-for-1 swap, right?
Yeah.
And for this situation only, we're not doing the 450 pay down. We're paying for 474.
Yep.
It's going to cost an extra $50 on average to a household.
Okay.
So that's the thought. That's the way I'm breaking it down, right?
Okay.
Is this vehicle worth $50?
Right.
For household.
Your scenario is if you don't use free cash, goes to town meeting, it's appropriated, so it lands on the general fund as a tax, right? And you're saying if you use that free cash, you don't have that $50 increase on the tax bill as a result. And that,
No.
no,
That's not what I'm
okay.
saying.
Okay.
You're just
I'm
trying to put
confusing
that.
it.
You're trying to put a value.
I'm just trying to put a value on to every household in town.
Yeah, you know,
It's
and that's
$50,
that's
right?
what I
That's
do
how much
every
it's gonna
time.
cost.
I
Yeah.
always think about the
That's all. Yeah.
$13 per 100 or something. 12. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
12.
So the only other point that it's free cash isn't exactly a savings account. So every year free cash needs to be certified and it can fluctuate from year to year. Free cash is essentially money that the town has, but in the course of a year, the only way it increases is dependent upon additional revenues that weren't budgeted, because, I don't know, the hotels were busier, or funds that were budgeted and not spent. There are these additional funds, but there are deductions that go against free cash relative to the course of the year. If we have deferred revenue, right, revenue that we're expecting in one fiscal year, but we don't get it by the end of August, that reduces free cash as a liability. So understanding that there are these moving parts, free cash is not a savings account and can fluctuate. We have been very fortunate that we haven't had reductions in free cash, but it does happen, which is why you cannot rely on it to be there every year. It's not a savings account.
Do you feel like you were heard and understood? I want to make sure you had.
I think I confused myself. We can move on.
I hear it doesn't only happen to me.
So are we discussing those items rated 18 and above or not?
We can. I mean,
Okay.
this is a free conversation,
Yeah.
so by all means we can.
Yeah.
But was the plan not to do so? I just,
My assumption is, I was going to recommend we approve all that are above. I mean, at this point, I would recommend we recommend all the projects.
you're making a motion then?
No, I'm not.
Why not?
You're asking.
But if you
I
did,
can,
there'd still be a
'cause you
discussion.
said, you said you wanted to talk about the ones above, so I'm just clearing up.
Yeah,
My intent was everything
that's your, okay.
above the 4 that we discussed
Okay.
was assumed to be
Yeah.
a recommendation, and that's how I viewed it.
And
But
my
if-
goal was to make sure we talked about the lowest one and then open the floor to any other things that people want to talk about. So the opportunity has been there for folks to chime in otherwise, but I wasn't going to put anything on the table specifically, but this is all of our forum. So
Great.
did you have something you wanted to? No?
No, I mean, I'm glad the town is like, we all agree that the ambulances are prioritized. I mean, I think that's,
Yep.
you know, I think some of the results were reassuring, I would just say, with respect to our voting.
Christy, remind me again, are the rater values or the average values, are they included in the report at town meeting for these projects?
No.
So this isn't, so, barring setting a line, right, that, if you're below this score, you don't move forward, which we're not doing, right? John, I mean, I've always taken the approach that says, I've almost always taken the approach that says, allow the town to vote on these things, right? It's up to the town as to whether or not the town feels that these are important enough to pay the value that is being requested here. So I'm supportive of moving them all forward because the town's going to make that decision. Because barring that, what do? You have to create a line. That's a recommendation to Christie to not move forward something below a certain score. And if we're accepting all 4 of the 4 lowest ones, then there is no line. So essentially, I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing is move them all forward or make a recommendation that all of them go forward.
I'm happy to make that motion if that's. I just didn't want to interrupt anyone else's thought process or, cut them off if they wanted to comment on any other projects. But I'm happy to make that motion.
I guess just a real quick comment on the process and the kind of one of the things that was a little bit surprising to me was the way the department's prioritized. For example, the DPW, I think everything scores as a 2. Almost everything, many of the things scored as a 2. There was no rating lower than a 2, or lower in priority than a 2. And I'd like to see more variability in those ratings. Is everything essential, right? Everything necessary. That really speaks to, is it, how long, to me, something that's necessary or essential means essential, you have to have it. Like, there's no question. Necessary is, we can make do for a little while, but everything is, I don't get the impression that is what the 2 is really capturing. So
I don't know.
I'm just making a general comment on the process. I'm hopeful in the future that there's more variability.
I thought I was kind of taken aback by that too, but I mean that's just how it works, right? But then everyone was explaining, and especially with the delivery of some of these vehicles taking 2 or 3 years, Chief Purcell was saying some of the fire trucks that they ordered in like 19 are now just getting delivered. I think they are making do with the things that probably should have been replaced 5 years ago, right? And they're chugging along with what they can, and I'm sure there's probably jury rigs all over the place in the DPW garage trying to make these things last.
They also receive a guide that defines the priority 1 through 4. So priority 1 being essential urgent, priority 2 being necessary desirable. There's additional definition. Priority 3 desired improvement, and then priority 4 deferrable. So they're using the defined.
And I think that there was a time when 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, when the DPW had a lot of much older vehicles that where you saw them skewing what they brought to us, more of them were critical because the vehicles were so old. As they come now towards the ceiling on their usable life, which I think generally 10 years for most vehicles, and they're at around an average of around 11, perhaps that might be the time that you'd start seeing them go with a greater variability. And it's a fair point, but they have a plan where things should be going through their plan. As a department, they've been doing this more rigorously than most. It's been my experience in 5 or 6 years touching this.
Yeah, no, I'm hopeful that, when we have, I don't know how many projects here, or, you're talking, roughly 20 on this list, or maybe 25, they all score on the 1 and 2. And I'm just looking for some more variability in that thought process as to when they assess these things, as to whether or not they truly are a 1 or 2. Because it's kind of like, I want the bar for 1 or 2 to be higher. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. And I would say, and I don't think it goes to the approval of this, which is why I'm sort of staying away from the comment right now, but there is a conversation as to whether or not there should have been a longer list for us to approve that maybe allowed us to sort of have more input on what should fit in that, 1.4 to $2.1 million window. That's a conversation to be had, a lot of input. This is the first year that we've been handed something to approve, but I don't think that takes away from the fact.
I fully expect, and again, Christy can correct me if I'm wrong, anything that goes, let's just say all of these make it to town meeting, anything that town meeting does not vote for would be kept on the list, and the next year its rating might go up higher because, we've just spent another year not getting that vehicle, that whatever it is, right? So I kind of see that being.
But the playground didn't do that. The shooting range didn't do that.
No. Yeah.
The police scanner for the crime scene thing. So I think that there are conversations that this is an important conversation to have, to take a temperature of a group of folks about a subset of things. That opportunity didn't exist for some of the things that might have been closer to the periphery here. I think maybe to your point, these all seem like really important things. I think the extension of that would be maybe some other things as a town that we could have some input on potentially. But again, I don't think that speaks to approving this list here, which is why I didn't really want to make that part of the conversation for this. Maybe as a follow-up as to how could this committee better serve its analytical purpose or consideration. I don't mean to take away your platform.
No. I'm good.
All right.
I just was. I'm just using the opportunity to talk through this a little bit more, and maybe it's not appropriate since we're talking about having a motion now. So, I said what I needed to say.
If somebody
has the motion been made, or
it has not been made.
It hasn't been made yet. That's okay.
I was just going to say, whoever does make the motion, I think we need to include dollar amounts, don't we? Or do we generally, I forget, do we make the motion to reference as listed or as documented?
I haven't been doing it with you for a few years, so I'm not sure what it usually is, but you could do them as presented. I think what we've done is if it goes up at all, we ask the committee to come back together. If it goes down, I don't think that we come back to you.
Okay.
So maybe the only possible change from as presented would be the mobile command vehicle moving from other over towards free
That is
cash in
correct.
its entirety.
That's right.
This could be something we discuss perhaps after reviewing the motion. It might be a story I'm telling myself, but one of the other functions of the group here could be an opportunity for us to provide feedback to the department heads about possible questions or thoughts that they'll get back at town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So on the items that we rated lower, it could be kind of some blunt and candid feedback to the department heads. Hey, this is a question you might think about having a canned response to for when it comes to the group.
I think that's excellent feedback. I would go even further and say that in general, capital expenses are voted on up and down unless somebody makes a motion to break them apart. In the past, we've mostly done it that way, although I've seen it broken apart as well. I think that it's a good point, but in most cases, the town won't ask to pull these apart to go into, or maybe they'll pull one or two of them apart. But I think it's a very good call out that folks may push back on.
I just anticipate folks might be asking the police department for details on the mobile command vehicle, seeing the price tag of that and sort of the genre of the request. Some unsolicited feedback could be the anticipating coming before town meeting. Chief's presentation included the video of help finding the missing person, and having that mission accomplished, for lack of a better word, without the command vehicle. I would argue could be an example of why we might not need it. So just really providing some concrete opportunity cost on how services would suffer if we didn't have that.
So Christy,
Just a thought.
just to make sure, are you taking these notes to be able to communicate them? Because I don't know that you have the platform to do that after this.
The video was super professional, but it was like box checked off. We did that without the command vehicle. So did we need it there?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, a look back at incident reports over a year period or something where there's, I mean, the incident could have been handled maybe faster with less suffering to the person,
Yep.
right? With less use
That's
of
true.
resources, right? So perhaps some sort of a look back over a year to say the following, however 100,000 incidents occurred, which ones would we have used the mobile command vehicle? And the following schedule of events occurs in Westborough and or gatherings and or what have you. And here's the ones we would have used, so maybe some sort of planning or, retrospective
100%.
quote unquote planning about how you
Opportunity.
would have used that vehicle had it been in play.
And it
That might be
It
interesting.
really does feel like an opportunity for a regional vehicle. And I'm not sure if it's something we could even recommend bumping up to perhaps the state police level through maybe our state reps, something like that, where if we're going to be at the cutting edge of having a vehicle like this, I mean, it's impossible to put a price tag on someone's life. And to have something like this save someone's life, it's hard to vote against that. But the regional thing, I was just sort of spitballing with myself this morning.
It's also really hard to measure these things, right?
Yeah.
What's their success rate? To your point, absolutely. You can get the historic data to say how many hundreds or whatever it was responses would have been benefited from this. But moving forward, if we purchase this vehicle, how do you measure it? You can't. I mean, there's really no way, because every single emergency situation is going to have its own unique situation. But again, I look at what the chief shared with us, and I look at the difficulties that they're posed with setting up a complex, site in challenging situations, and I say this is something that inevitably should benefit the town for better response, more thorough response, et cetera. You make some really good points. Hadn't thought about the state police piece. I don't know if that's an option or not. I suspect if there was a large issue in town, the state police would probably be involved and have their own command vehicle brought. But I don't know how
I
that
think
works.
Chief mentioned that state police does have something similar, but it can be 2, 3, 4 hours before it would arrive. And in a time sensitive scenario like that, that's 4 hours of lost time.
Yeah.
But my recollection is none of the surrounding towns have one of these. I don't know.
Although there's a conversation about borrowing them from other towns, so other towns, I don't know if it's just around us, but other ones, but
Yeah.
like, so that
don't
was
know
a
how that-
a
I don't
flavor.
know
I
how
just
that
think
was-
this is the one that's going to get kind of grilled at town meeting. So given some,
It is one. Yes, absolutely.
So then let it get grilled at town meeting.
that's it.
Right.
And rather than be the ones who grill it here, let them do it.
That's right. Let it go. Let it go forward
grilling.
and see. Let the town decide how important it is.
Great.
So shall I make a motion that we accept all of the capital improvements
Yeah, recommend them as presented.
as presented, except that the mobile command vehicle would be moved to free cash? For a dollar value,
Correct. Sure.
where's our dollar value?
At the bottom of the page.
With the one with the.
So it's that one.
It's this one here.
Plus the 370.
I think I can.
I see. So it's the 1.5276 million plus the 375. Is that what it is?
374, but yes.
Okay. Plus the 374.
With 1901,600, we close.
Oops. Let me try that again.
That's what I have for free cash, but the total dollar value.
1901. Say it again. 1901 6,000.
That's just free cash though. If you're
Oh, I
recommending
see.
all the projects, the total value is 11,689,997.
Oh, right. So for the 11,689,997, with the free cash portion being modified. Yeah,
That's the motion.
that's the motion.
That's quite a motion.
Little meandering, but we nailed it.
You know,
Do I have a second?
little help from my friends.
Second.
The only other comment I'd add is that it is impossible to put a value on things like life, but we do every day. We don't have twice as many snowplows, 3 times as many snowplows, even though it'd be safer. But we make decisions. These are things we have to do. And there's always going to be compromise. You'll never have a limitless budget. Any other conversation before we vote? Is Jakob on the line?
No,
So do we have anybody who's remote?
we don't.
Okay, with all present then, all in favor of the recommendation? It was 5, all against, abstain, it's 5-0-0, recommending that this be recommended to town manager.
Nice job, Eric.
Thank you.
Great.
Great
Can
job, everyone.
I just take the last maybe 10 minutes to talk about what's in front of you? It
But of course.
won't take long. I just wanted to clarify. So the process that we went through ahead of projects coming to you, we did not remove any project requests. So I think that's really important and not something that I've said before. All project requests are listed in the 5-year or 10-year outlook. So the only thing that we did was move some things around if they were competing with other large projects. And that's something I think in the future, if we're talking about the role of this committee, we've had in the past, I remember if you saw something in fiscal 28 that felt more important, maybe it gets pulled forward and it can get pushed around. So that's something we can talk more about that process. But just wanting to clarify that nothing you are seeing everything for the 5-year plan. So the first pages, which are stapled together, have, again, the purpose of this was to start looking at things by function. We'll always have different departments talking about their needs, but we felt like it was really important to start looking at things by function. So vehicles, facilities are all separately grouped. And then the most important piece is that last page where you really understand the funding source. And so one of the reasons that we've talked about this a lot, so I think all of you understand what we were working on and trying to stay in alignment. The second page is that 10-year outlook. Sorry, the third page, the single page. This is the same type of information sort of put on the spreadsheet in the same way, and this is the outlook. So this is fiscal 32 going out to fiscal 41. And some of the things that we're trying to do here, which we have to add that information, is to start to schedule some of our borrows as we're seeing borrowing dropping off. So as some of our borrows are declining, we've placed some of the larger borrowing projects. For example, the community center, you can see under fiscal 32, that's in a year where we're seeing debt falling off. And so we're scheduling that type of project to come before town meeting at that time. So that's, I just wanted to sort of talk through that's the philosophy that we've had here.
Sorry, where is the community center on this?
It's in fiscal 32. It's in under facilities, which is that first block. It's the second to last project under facilities.
Send it to Long Sheet.
Great.
Oh,
14.5
there we go.
million.
Yep. The other thing that you'll see if you flip that page over, is in fiscal. So about it's not on this page, but in the middle column, at the top of it says is the 10.3 million. So the first is you're looking at a capital stabilization fund, which we're talking about creating. But the second block here says capital improvement fund. And what you're seeing there is the capital improvement fund is what we all sort of refer to as that Pulte money. So the money that's set aside that it can only be used for things for which we borrow. And right now, because of our debt strategy, all of the taxes, motor vehicle excise, property taxes, all of that comes from that Pulte development goes into the separate fund. Every year at town meeting, part of the budget motion is to take the money that we've received and put it against debt. And that's that debt strategy that we talked about ad nauseum around 2020 when we were talking about the fail school. As that strategy plays itself out, at some point that those funds are going to start creating an available balance. And so that's what you're seeing here is that, and this is all estimates based on what we know right now, but you're seeing that that fund is going to start to grow. I want to say that's fiscal 32, fiscal 35, 36, we'll start to see that fund grow. And then we're able to start paying for some of those larger projects as opposed to borrowing. So you see on this sheet, the only borrow that's proposed in the 10-year outlook is for that first year fiscal 32 and for the community center. So I'll caveat all of that because it's really, really good news saying that this is all based on estimates. It's also based on only borrowing for the projects that we know are in the, that are coming forward at the amounts that we're anticipating. But that's something that is going to be, once that does come to fruition and that capital improvement fund does start to grow, it grows pretty rapidly. And so at that point, we'll have to sort of understand how we want to handle it. As you probably remember, that was created through special legislation. So if we were to make any sort of amendment to it, we'd have to go back to the state. But I think we get asked a lot about, but what about the Pulte money? And so the answer is we do use it to pay down debt. And within the next decade or so, we anticipate that that fund will start to grow.
That is great news.
So we're going to show all of this within the capital planning document. And then this last page that you have is those other projects that you don't usually get to see. And these are projects that we're anticipating coming forward with alternative funding sources, meaning with no funds appropriated at town meeting. And that I think is important to caveat also is that some of these funding sources that we've identified, such as Mass Trails, potentially Mass Works, might require a match. And if it does require a match, then that project would have to move into more of a capital request, and the match would be considered by this body, just like you've considered all the other capital requests. So, but these are currently they're sitting separately because they're anticipated to be funded without town appropriation. So
Thank you. And I think, thank you also for speaking to what I have been concerned about, what has not been presented to us. I appreciate, I never thought it was anything nefarious.
Oh,
So
sure.
you addressed it and I appreciate it. And thank you. I think
Yeah.
it's good to know we have seen the full slate.
You have. Yeah. Great. I know this is the first time some of you have seen the capital outlook. So, following this meeting, if you have questions, I think what we want to do is we're going to include this all in the budget document. We'll include it as a part of our larger budget hearing presentation, but it might make sense to bring this group together sort of in the first quarter of next year, just to kind of go over this again. Maybe you can take some time to read the narrative, see if the way that we're presenting it makes sense to you. That would be really helpful to get feedback. So.
Thank you. And I think also in the past, if there's been a material change to one of these items, if it comes off the list or something, we've voted to approve a certain slate here. If that goes up and down by $1,000, it doesn't impact us, but material changes would be another reason we'd come together, if only just for a quick chat, to make sure we still approve.
Great. Definitely.
Anything else anybody wants to share?
Do we have minutes?
We do have minutes. We don't have any we have to wait for. So we have the 2 sets of minutes. There's the November 25th minutes and December 3rd. We have a motion for accepting minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor of accepting the minutes? All opposed? So approved, 500. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor of adjourning? Personally, thank you everybody much for putting up with me being me. Great job. You've approved what we need to. Have a great evening.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Christine,
thanks.
John, and Amanda for the help.
Have a great
Thanks,
holiday
folks. Really
season.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
See you early
Christina.
next year. It's